Good evening. Welcome to the April 4th regular meeting of the Rockville Center Board of Education. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are emergency evacuation exits on either side in the back. Any correspondence that can be posted has been posted. Opportunity for students. Seeing none in the audience tonight, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Gavin, for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Barry. I am pleased to announce a new community partnership with the Village of Rockville Center. Tonight, I am recommending that the Board of Education approve an important resolution. The first part of the resolution outlines a new intermunicipal agreement with the village and our district for the use of the lower level of the village recreation building for the addition of 2 new UPK classes. The second part of the resolution details our expanded partnership with the JCC to provide staffing for those classrooms, allowing an additional 36 students to have access to UPK classrooms right here in the village of Rockville Center. As our public may know, our current UPK program is housed at the Barry Friedberg Center in Oceanside. These new agreements allow for a closer option for parents. Thanks to the village, the space has been newly renovated and allows our UPK students access to the playground and gym at designated times. I was there today. It was a warm, inviting place for our youngest learners to explore, learn, and play. The newly renovated space at the Village Recreation Building is more than just a classroom. It is a gateway to growth and exploration for our students. With access to these facilities, our UPK students will enjoy a holistic educational experience that balances learning with physical activity and social interaction. There are many people to thank tonight for their foresight and willingness to try something new. Thank you to Mayor Murray, Deputy Mayor Baxley, Nancy Howard, and Village Director of Recreation Karen Polito for their willingness to try something new. So thank you very much. I have never worked in a district where the village government was so engaged with the schools and such a willing partner with us for the betterment of our students. Mayor Murray and Deputy Mayor Baxley were terrific partners in this endeavor, and the excitement of Karen Polito and the get-it-done attitude of Nancy Howard helped put this agreement on track. Their partnership exemplifies the powerful impact of collaboration between local government and educational institutions. Thank you to our partners at the JCC for their ability to think outside the box. Ronnie and Andrea, you are valued partners, and we can't wait to see the work you continue to do for our youngest learners. This initiative, however, was born from the foresight of the Board of Education. Their dedication to exploring all avenues for community partnership and local UPK options has been the driving force for this endeavor. The partnership and collaboration of this board is a terrific model for how school governance is supposed to work, so thank you. All of our trustees focus on expanding and improving opportunities for students. Ms. Love, Dr. Gadon, Dr. Moriarty, Mr. Bartels, and Mr. Murphy have been key players in turning this vision into a reality, showcasing the power of teamwork and collective drive towards shared goals. Now, for all those interested in the program, please know that a letter will go out tomorrow for the parents of the students registered in our UPK program in Oceanside at the JCC that will give them the opportunity to choose the rec as an option if it suits their family. If more than 36 parents choose this option, we will conduct a lottery on April 19th. If there are less than 36 parents that choose this option at the rec, we will open it up on the first come, first served basis for any additional parent that registers their child for UPK. While the hours of the program are the same, please know there are a few differences in the programs. Some parents need before and after care for their children. Please know that this option is not available at the rec. However, it is available at the JCC in Oceanside. Parents that wish for more information can contact Ms. Love or Dr. Gadon. President Barry, I recommend that the resolution before the board for consideration is passed in order to create the new Rockville Center Community Cooperative for Early Childhood Education. This initiative represents a significant leap forward in our commitment to nurturing the potential of every child in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. As Mr. Gavin has stated, it has been a priority of this board to focus on strengthening the many partnerships in our wonderful community. This agreement is an example of just that. We heard from our families that there was a desire for an additional pre-K option within our district, and our village officials were eager and willing to work with us to make this become a reality. And for that, we are deeply grateful. The board also wishes to extend its thanks to Mayor Murray, Deputy Mayor Baxley, Ms. Nancy Howard, all of our village trustees, Ms. Karen Polito, and all of the Rec Center staff. We are deeply grateful for your partnership and all your work that you did to make this happen. We are excited to offer this opportunity to our youngest learners and their families. At this time, I will read the resolution and ask the board to vote. Be it resolved, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the attached intermunicipal cooperative agreement dated as of April 4th, 2024, between the district and the Incorporated Village of Rockville Center for the use of certain village property for a pre-kindergarten program, and authorizes the board president to sign same. And be it further resolved, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the attached agreement dated April 4th, 2024, between the district and the Barry and Florence Friedberg Jewish Community Center to implement a universal pre-kindergarten program for district residents at the village location, and authorizes the board president to sign same. May I please have a motion? Second? Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. At this time, we would like to take a photo.
We'd love to have you guys come up for a photo.
Okay, items for information. Mr. Gavin?
Thank you, President Barry. We are excited to be joined here by Mr. Zappia and some of the members of the Riverside School to talk about their enrichment model here this evening. Since becoming principal of Riverside, Mr. Zappia has used this opportunity to really take a deep dive into engaging students and identifying tools that will help us allow students to continue to progress in skills on an individualized path. Mr. Zappia, please introduce your team, too.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. Thank you, Central Administration. Thank you, Board of Education. And thank you to everyone who is viewing from home and our Riverside constituents here tonight. So thank you. My name is Christopher Zappia. I'm the principal of Riverside Elementary School. And I am thrilled to have this opportunity tonight to stand in front of you and to have the spotlight shown on Riverside Elementary School for all the wonderful things that have been occurring this school year. But one thing in particular is our Riverside enrichment projects that we have. And in a moment, I'm going to introduce to you both Mrs. Alexi, our math implementation coach, and Mr. Keith Eckert, who is our stellar teacher, two dynamic teachers who really took these initiatives and did amazing things with our students here. These two programs that they're going to be speaking about tonight on the surface seem very different, but in fact, they actually are very much the same in that they both focus on student-centered learning, which is so important to us. As educators, it's critical that we self-reflect. And when I think back to my most impactful lessons with students in the classroom, it's not necessarily the content that stands out to me. It's when I was able to take a step back and be the facilitator of learning and allow those students to take the reins and really drive their own instruction, drive their own learning. That's when you saw the biggest impact with students. And when I reflect back on that, I think they were risk takers. They were great communicators. They practiced self-inquiry. They were open-minded and listened to others. And of course, they were reflective on their practices, on what they were doing. All through that, they persevered, right? They might have taken multiple risks, but it was those moments when we saw them put into practice those skills and dispositions, that's when I saw the true learning happening. So we start to ask ourselves, how can we create more opportunities for that, be deliberate in creating opportunities for that to happen in the classroom, aside from just the content that's being delivered? When can we step back? How can we create opportunities where we step back and be the facilitators of learning and allow those students to really take the reins and control it themselves? So that leads us to our why. What's our goal here? And it's really to establish those learning opportunities for our students so that they can actively apply these skills and dispositions outside of the classroom. So a big focus this year has been our student inquiry units, where we've really focused on the habits of mind. We've embedded components of the IB learner profile. All those things go hand in hand, and that's really what that last slide spoke to. But and those are really being deliberately practiced by our students within those student inquiry units. How can we, though, create opportunities outside of those units of study that branch out of that, where we can allow students to be self-driven, allow them to choose avenues to practice for their own learning? How can we create those opportunities? So, working with Mrs. Alexi and working with Mr. Eckert, these two programs really, on the surface, again, they seem different. Map Accelerator speaks about its math that ties into our NWEA assessments. Passion projects, where students have the opportunity to create or actually to seek out their own learning through something that they're passionate about. They seem very different, but again, they're focused on student-centered learning. They focus on those habits of mind, perseverance, risk-taking, communication. It's very deliberate in that way, both of them. So I'm very happy to introduce Mrs. Alexi. She's going to come up here, and she's going to speak to you about Map Accelerator and really get into the nuts and bolts of what she's been doing with our third grade students at Riverside. So Mrs. Alexi, thank you.
So I'm sure you're wondering, what is Map Accelerator? And Map Accelerator is a program that we are using among the 5 elementary schools this year in 3rd grade. And this program is partnered with NWEA. So it is taking the students' NWEA scores and creating personalized learning paths for them on the computer. So it is an online personalized learning tool for grades 3 through 8. Right now, currently, we have it in grade 3. And it covers content material from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade and even into some college courses. This contains videos, articles, questions, tests, quizzes for students to practice different math questions and domains at their correct level of difficulty. And this is a tool that we're using for students to receive math practice at their correct level of difficulty. So how does Map Accelerator work? First, the students take the MAP growth assessment, which we call the NWEA, and they've been taking that 3 times a year since kindergarten. And their score goes directly to Map Accelerator, which then puts them in different categories based on their domain. And there are 4 domains for math. So each domain area has its own RIT score and gives students questions at their own level. So Map Accelerator then generates learning paths from these scores. Students then begin working on their learning paths on their own Chromebooks, and then teachers and administrators analyze the data to improve student learning outcomes. The big focus on Map Accelerator is mastery learning for all students. And when we ask what that means, it basically is focusing on a personalized, variable pace curriculum for students at their own level of difficulty, with high expectations around proficiency. So when students log into the program, the first thing they might see are one of these screens that say ready to practice, and they will answer 4 questions on one of the domains that they get to choose. And if they are stuck, there are places for them to go and get help. Most of the material that is being presented to them would be new and things that they haven't seen in the classroom so far. Or it could be a remediation of things that they have seen before that they didn't master the first time around. So if they are stuck, there are links there to help them. They get to watch a video. The program will give them a hint. They're encouraged to ask a classmate and then ask a teacher. So it's really having them persevere and to understand where to go for help before just giving up and asking for help from an adult right away. After that, they will take a unit test, and that's where there will be mixed questions, not just the topic in isolation, for students to show that they really have mastered all of the content. It's a little bit gamified that students can then level up, so that's an incentive for them. They can earn badges, and they earn points and work towards mastery. So when they're practicing a skill or answering questions, if they get less than 70% correct, it shows that they attempted this skill. But it doesn't really award them any points yet because it encourages them to go back and actually do better on that to prove that they learned it. If they score between 70% and 99%, it's considered a familiar topic, and they earn 50 points. They will get 100% correct, and they will be considered proficient because those skills are being done in isolation, and they will earn 80 points. Once those skills are mixed in with a unit review, they can earn 100 points on that, and they get a crown. The benefits for the teachers. This is a program that provides tools and functionality for the teachers to help them be more effective. It shows teachers areas of strength and weaknesses for their students, which then allows them to work in smaller groups with their students who have similar needs. It provides opportunities for small group instruction. It allows teachers to have access to material that can be out of their curriculum range to better support learners. And there are options for coursework to enhance curriculum in the classroom. Often when we're taking the NWEA, we see students that have high achievement, they might have low growth, and this is one of our solutions for that. And then we say, well, what do the students think?
I like using Accelerator because you can learn many different things, and it's also based on your NWEA score, so you can take things based on that to help you with your next NWEA scores.
I like Map Accelerator because it's really fun and it has videos and also articles to help you pass like the challenges and the quizzes. I feel like I've learned new things in the fractions part, and I also feel like I've learned new things in the geometry part.
I learned many different things, like multiplying whole numbers, dividing whole numbers. You can learn geometries, numbers, and operations, and like many other things. And it's not like focusing on just one thing, and you're free to do other things too.
So that was the overall consensus with those students. And now, Ms. Reckert.
Good evening, everybody. So we're going to just kind of transition over to our passion projects now. The common thread you're really going to see throughout this part of the presentation is just that student ownership that goes along with the MAP Accelerator. So passion projects kind of fall into a category that's very popular in the educational world right now. Some schools might call it 20% time. It's been called Genius Hour. We're calling it passion projects at Riverside. It started in Stellar with our 5th graders. We began once or twice a cycle as the 5th graders came into the library to begin discussing it, and then it progressed more into the 5th graders' win periods once we got further into the process. By going a little bit deeper into the process and pushing it into the classrooms during the win period, that gave students more time to continue working on it. So the great part about passion projects is similar to the MAP Accelerators. There's an ownership of learning for the students. There's an opportunity to enrich them all at their own level, and of course it's reinforcing research skills that are important. So we began with a deep dive into Bloom's taxonomy. We looked at the keys to literacy and focused on question generation. And what students did was they were given popular picture books like A Pinkalicious by Victoria Kahn or Mo Willems, any kind of piggy and elephant, pigeon books. And then they had to read each book in their groups, and then they came up with questions based on Bloom's taxonomy. So it started with our lower level thinking with remembering, understanding, and applying, and then kind of moving up to our higher level thinking of analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So the students had to think a little bit deeper about each book as they sort of moved up the Bloom's taxonomy chart. And the whole purpose of this was to really set them up for creating their guiding question of their passion project, which would be finding something that is what we consider a non-Googleable answer. So when they created their guiding question, it shouldn't be something they could just go right into a search engine, enter, and then have the answer, bing, bang, boom, be able to move on. So from there, we went to our interest survey. Each student was given essentially a survey where they wrote down maybe their hobbies, some of their own passions, things they like to do outside of the school day. And this gave them an idea of what they wanted to study. So they moved on to what am I really interested in? These formed our guiding questions of what would be their passion projects. From there, they had to identify their purpose. Did they want to inform their audience about something, or did they want to try to persuade someone? When we looked at our guiding questions, then we started talking again about that higher order of thinking, that non-Googleable question. So naturally, all the boys wanted to write about sports. How to get into the NFL was a very popular topic at first. And they told me they wanted to learn how to get into the NFL and study that. I said, that's very easy. You go to a good college, you get scouted, you go to the combine, you score well, and then you're in the NFL, you get drafted. And they said, right. And I said, no, but how do you qualify for the combine? How do you get those schools to look at you to go to a good college football program? So then we started going a little deeper in terms of, what skills, what strategies, what techniques do they need to start practicing at a younger age? What types of muscles might they need to develop? What type of skills do they need to continue to practice? So that got them kind of thinking again on that higher order level of thinking with Bloom's taxonomy. From there, we went to our topics, our research, where they had an opportunity to really take control of their learning. This is where, from the teacher's standpoint, it's the most challenging part of passion projects, because our role really is to now step back and just let the students take over. We would have a lot of time where the students would have research. We talked about what would make a good source. So again, if I kind of just make that analogy to NFL and sports, we talked to the students about maybe looking more closely at like an ESPN article versus, johnnysports.com or something of that nature. From there, at the end of each research session, they took care of themselves by doing a little self-reflecting on their research. That's a little picture of the note-taking cover page right there. It just asked them, what did I accomplish today? What went well? What should my next steps be? So it gave them a nice chance to really self-assess where they are in their project and where they're moving forward to. From there, after their research, wrong button, sorry. We moved to what's called Career Connection. It's something really fun that we're doing right now at Riverside. We have a great relationship with Discovery Education. They just launched only a couple months ago what's called Career Connection, and this gives students an opportunity to connect with people in the real world. It gives you a chance to create a video conference time that's mutual between yourself and the worker, and then that person comes in, they present their job to the students, and then the students have a plentiful amount of time to have a question and answer. So we were very fortunate. We had a software engineer named Oliver Short from Discovery Ed that joined our 5th grade classroom in Stellar one day. He presented all about his life and his passions. He talked about playing video games, growing up very often, kind of tinkering with things, taking things apart, and that sort of springboarded him into becoming a software engineer. And what was really eye-opening and exciting for the students is he's presenting this on what's called Studio within Discovery Ed, which is their version of like a PowerPoint or a Google Slides. And he was the software engineer for Studio. So it was not just, here's what I do, but I'm showing you what I'm doing using something I created. And that kind of gave the kids kind of that really wow moment where they saw where his passions led him, and it made a great connection to our passion projects. And just a couple of examples of our passion projects, this really gave the students a chance to be creative. The whole idea of being creative was just as important as the actual process. So you see some of our projects up there on the bottom right. You see sort of a persuasive type of passion project. Softball is harder than baseball was by one of the students. On the top left, you kind of see another informative piece where how does the moon affect living things? I'm sure that'd be a great passion project to talk about with the eclipse coming up. And then one of my favorites is kind of in the bottom middle there. It's called The Fusion of Flavor, inspired by Nick Giovanni, who I was told was a very famous chef. I've never heard of him before. But this student actually did a menu style for his project. So as you flip through his project, it was actually all different types of food listed, menu style. And then as you went through the slides moving forward, it was sort of the history of that food, how the ingredients mix together, and almost that kind of chemistry of what happens when these things mix together and the flavors get created. So it was really amazing to just sit back and watch the students create just whatever they wanted to be. Most of them had no idea what they thought it was going to look like at the end, but using that Canva platform really allowed them to go deep into their creativity. Excuse me. And then, of course, just positive learner outcomes. You heard from Mrs. Alexa, you heard from myself that the MAP Accelerator and the Passion Projects really allow students to drive their own learning. There's a tremendous amount of ownership and pride in their work. Teachers see this with the students in the MAP Accelerator, whether they're talking about leveling up and achieving mastery in certain places. In the Passion Projects, it was very easily seen when the students were presenting. I had my 5th graders again today, and they were not happy that we were doing something else, and they weren't able to present their Passion Project. So those couple of students that still haven't presented are just tapping me on the shoulder every time they see me. When can I present to the class? When can I present to the class? And I think that really speaks volumes to how much they really enjoy this and they love the idea of being able to take control of their own learning. And I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Zappia.
So we don't want this to just stay at Riverside. We want this to expand throughout the district. So we want to continue to discuss and plan with other grade levels, with other buildings. Passion projects have already commenced in 4th grade with Mr. Eckert, and there's plans underway for Map Accelerator to also launch in 4th grade. We want to begin to share our work, as I said, with the 4 elementary schools as a way to build upon our vision for Stellar and for our win period. In addition, Mrs. Alexi at Riverside, and in addition to her, she's been working with the other elementary math team members who are currently implementing the Math Accelerator program in their building. So this is happening in the other buildings with Map Accelerator. We're just highlighting the work of Mrs. Alexi today, but it is a collaborative effort, and she's been working hand in hand with the other facilitators in the buildings, and it's what it's all about. It's about collaboration, it's about sharing, and it's about sharing a best practice. And we want to continue to develop learning opportunities for our students that emphasize the skills and dispositions of the habits of mind and, of course, the IB learner profile. And that's really what this comes down to. We want to create opportunities that expand outside of the curriculum that we have our students working in. The units of inquiry have been very successful this year. Students, I'm so happy to announce, are so happy with the connections. They're making those connections organically as they're going through those units of study. We want to build on that. So we don't want it to just end right there. We want to build on that, give them opportunities to work outside of that curriculum, let that be the springboard, and we want them to really take ownership of it. We want this to be, we were discussing today, we want this to be a conversation that is not just between the teachers and the students, but students and their families. We think about goal setting based on habits of mind. It's not just about the content. What do you want to improve on? Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to be a better listener? What are those things that you can work on based on the habits of mind that are going to help you to become a better lifelong learner and be more effective? This way, when you graduate, you have those skills and dispositions, and whatever field you decide to go into, you're prepared. And that's really our main goal here. So I thank you. I thank the central administration. I thank the Board of Education for listening to us tonight. And of course, the Rockville Center community and our Riverside parents right over there. Thank you so much. And most importantly, I thank my teachers. I am very, very proud of the work that they're doing. And the risk takers, they're risk takers right here, trying something new with their students. You model what you want your students to do, right? So we ask questions. We practice self-inquiry. We take risks, we try new things. We collaborate, we work together. We model that, that's what the culture becomes, and that spreads out throughout the entire learning community. So thank you.
So before we
Do
turn
you have
it
any
over,
questions?
before we turn it over to the board, Mr. Zappia, first I want to say thank you for leading this initiative. You and I talked about this very early on in your tenure as the principal of Riverside.
I think it was an interview question.
I think it was an interview question, yeah. That's what I mean about early. We were a little early. But we could see right then and there that Mr. Zappia had the vision. And what I really would like to point out are a couple things. Number one, we're using multiple structures that we put in place, and we're finding ways to unify them or put them together or leverage each other. So we talked about the idea of Stellar. This is something that's been here for a long time. How that connects to the win period. That's something that's new. So we're taking things that we've built in the past and we're adding things forth to kind of bring things together. The other thing I absolutely love to hear were all the different ways that we're trying to scaffold for students for success. All the different pieces that we built into for teachers and for students to allow them to do something which can be very nerve-wracking for a teacher. You have 25 kids. They're all going to have to do a different project, and you're going to have to manage that. That could be nerve-wracking. Building in appropriately that scaffolding, I think, was really, really important. And then last but not least, and I'll turn it over to the board, I was super proud to keep hearing the word ownership, that our students own their own learning. That's what we want to bring forward, that they understand their role in the learning process and are not just passive, waiting for us to do things. And that starts at the elementary level. We often wait for it to happen at the high school and the middle school level or that process to kind of organically work. but that really starts at the elementary level. So kudos to you and your team. Thank you very much for the work, and I can't wait to see you expand.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Zappia, Ms. Alexi, and Mr. Eckert for being here and sharing the Riverside Enrichment story. Mr. Zappia, you answered my first question, which was going to be what the plan is for bringing this up next year within your building and what the plans are, if any, going across the district in our other elementary buildings. So I'm glad to hear that that's already in place. The MAP Accelerator, is it solely focused on NWA in terms of the growth, or is there a broader application beyond the NWA?
So what happens is when the students take the NWEA, that RIT score is transferred over and they get placed in a category based on that RIT score, and teachers then have the ability to move children into a higher level or a lower level based on where they were placed from that assessment. There is also an option for teachers to enhance the curriculum, and for example, if we're doing third grade fractions, there is an option for teachers to assign all students in the classroom third grade fraction videos, activities, articles to support what we are also doing in the classroom. So it's their own learning, but it also can be classroom learning as well.
Okay, that's great to hear. And with the passion projects and Genius Hour, I love to hear the real-world connections and connections to career. And Mr. Eckert, you touched on this towards the end, but how much time would you say is allotted to this type of work, and how does it fit within the structure of the rest of your day or week?
Yeah, so that's why we started with Stellar, just because we were able to control, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't overwhelm the students, because even in a moment where they're able to take control of their learning and really drive it themselves, we still have to make sure they're staying on the right road. So it took probably a couple months, I would say. It was something that we were just doing once or twice a cycle, and then when they started to get a little bit tired of it, we took a little break, and then we went back to it. So it was constantly in their mind. It wasn't something that we were doing on a daily basis, so we wanted to make sure we spread it out for sure.
That's great, thank you. Comments or questions from the board?
Forgot. Okay, thank you. A similar question, but thank you for explaining these two very different programs, but both of which share this feeling of making learning fun. I think we heard that from the students on the video, and it's something that you mentioned as well. It's not replacing direct instruction, but it's enhancing it, and it's making that memory for the student as they do take ownership. So along the lines of Mrs. Barry's question about timing, in terms of the MAP Accelerator, so if a student takes the NWEA 3 times yearly, so after each score, we get fairly immediate results, and then the learning path is established. How long would you say after each taking of the NWEA that a student continues on that path?
I'm honestly not sure of how quick it goes over, but it's within, I want to say, a couple of weeks we got those scores. It could be immediate. I'm not sure of the exact timeline. But after the fall one, they were placed in certain categories, and then they were reassessed again during the winter one, and then moved from those categories. Some students stayed in those categories because they didn't accomplish what they wanted to, or their RIT scores didn't change dramatically in that one area. But that feedback was fairly timely, I would say, and that then teachers were able to decide where they should be manually.
Right, thank you. And then in terms of the passion project, I guess this is a similar sort of question. I'm still on? I'm still on. So students have the win period and stellar period to sort of develop their research question, really, is what we're encouraging them to do. And I wonder how long do they have to work on it before they would present it to their classmates?
So because this was the first time, we really tried to stretch it out as long as they needed. We utilized the stellar period more for kind of the direction, like the check-in, where I would sit down in a conference with some students, kind of see where they were, very similar to kind of like a writing process, just where are we at, what do we think we need moving forward. And then during those win periods in the classroom is when they kind of conducted the research, because that was the independent time. If we were to do this every single win period and every single stellar period, it obviously would be a much shorter timeline, but we didn't want the students to feel we wanted to continue the level of enjoyment for it, so we didn't want it to feel like it was almost like a chore or just something else they had to do in school.
Right, something obviously they're looking forward to.
Correct,
working on.
exactly.
Exactly. And a question for either or any of you. It feels sort of implicit in these programs that there's a focus on learning, and even though it's tied to scores, there's learning for learning's sake going on here, right? And so do you find that students are maybe a little more willing to take those risks? And do they grow in confidence, that may not be tied to a specific test score, but it's more open-ended?
I think that there are definitely mixed reviews overall with Map Accelerator and that thought and that feeling. And I think for some students who are always achieving high things and things come easy to them, they're also now experiencing this level of maybe frustration for the first time and having to figure out, what do I do from here? So I think while, yes, there is the enjoyment, I think there's also now that struggle of, what do I do if I don't know how to do something? And sometimes that could be an opportunity that is fairly new for some of those students. And for others, I think it's like, wow, yeah, I get to watch this video and this teaches me something. That's awesome. Now I can answer these questions. So I feel like there's definitely mixed thoughts based on that.
Right, and to have that sort of struggle in a supportive environment, right? Is
Exactly,
that what
and
you were gonna
especially
say?
the fact that it's them at their own computers. Nobody else in the classroom knows. They're able to take a risk without fear of humiliation. Not that that would happen, but just internally, if that's something that they might be worried about.
I was just thinking the same thought where, what a great conversation to have with a student who maybe for the first time is starting to struggle a little bit, helping them to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and thinking about that habit of mine, being a risk taker and really making that, maybe we talked about goal setting before, that could be your goal, right? Let's work towards that feeling of, what do I do when I don't know something? That's important. It's important for kids to your point, to feel that in that controlled, nurturing, loving environment, and we can help them navigate through that. So thank you.
Right, no, these are life skills, right? We all need to figure out a way through and a path through, so I think this is a great opportunity to start that at an early age in 3rd grade, so thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. I just want to start by saying, your passion is so evident, even talking to us, so the fact that that's what's coming into the classroom, it can only serve to get kids excited about being there. So thank you. My biggest question is how quickly can we start expanding this? But I know that everyone's thinking about that. So I'm not looking for an answer, but I think there's so many wonderful things about both things that you're doing. One thing that sticks out to me, particularly that the passion projects are in Stellar, I know the win periods are being used sometimes to help kids who are struggling, and so different kids are using their win period differently, and I think it's so important that every student get a chance to do their passion project, because just the diversity of what we saw in those couple of projects that you highlighted, you can just see with the things that kids are interested in, how diverse that is, and it's great that they have a chance to really delve into that regardless of how well they're doing in math or if they need ELA support, or so I really appreciate that. And I'm just curious, I don't really have a question, I'm just curious, as we now continue this year and it will continue next year, just what we're seeing in terms of just observations, how it's helping kids. So I'd love to just hear a follow-up at some point as it expands.
I think I would also recommend that we bring students back too.
Yeah.
So that we do a little presentation for the board where we can have students talk about both processes as we expand up and out. So, in terms of trying to address your larger question about how we move forward, I think we have structures in place to do that. So when we talk about in the math committee recommendations, we'll have this pilot to take a look at and say, is this something, from the 3rd grade that we want to move up to 4th grade? So we'll have a robust discussion about that. Same thing for the win period. We already have an ELA that really came out of the ELA committee about the what I need right now period. So we still have an ELA committee that we would have the ability to have this conversation. How do we move up the passion projects? And to your point, everyone's point, how do we structure it? Right, so we know we need win periods for students to get what they need, but we also want to give them a win period to do what they want,
Right.
and learn what they want. So it's really trying to strike that balance, and I think, Mr. Eckert really hit on it in that we could do this as a unit and do it in 5 stellar periods and have it done in 4 weeks and be done that way. But then it feels like a unit, as opposed to, I know that on Friday or day 6 or day 4 However, whenever that comes, that I'm going to get a chance to do this week. So I think that adds something special and keeps students engaged. You just got to balance it with, are we still doing the same thing after 42 weeks? You know what I mean? So you just want to try to make sure that it keeps fresh and at the same time allows them to look forward to something special.
Yeah, and I think that I wrote balance here too. I think the balance of being concerned about test scores, but also being concerned about, you know, more authentic learning is really important to maintain. So kudos. I'm excited for the kids that are getting to experience this.
Just one quick thing to add, sorry. Just with the Passion Project, also similar to kind of like with the Cadoyo platform, we tried to control it as much as we could within the school day, but the students were told that if they were feeling passionate about their Passion Project research, I couldn't raise this, sorry, that they were allowed to continue their research at home. So it wasn't something that was just, you know, like Mr. Gavin said, you know, controlled in just this only 4 weeks that we're doing it. So, you know, we did have a lot of students that continued doing some of their own research at home and adding to their presentations outside of the school day, which was amazing to see as well.
Thank you all for being here. We love having you. One thing that struck me, you started out the presentation talking about how these two things kind of correlate and go together. And the best difference between them is that we have to assess students, and they need assessments, and they need scores, and we need to see how they're doing and progressing. But with the Passion Projects kind of on the other side of that, everybody can be successful. There's no score associated. So I love that they can choose a topic, they can build their own confidence, they can feel good about what they choose, where certain students have anxiety over certain assessments. And I just love that there is that balance of, we do need to assess you, but you also have this opportunity. So I really do love all the correlations between the two things together. And really thank you all for your work on it. A couple of other things I really love about it was the mirroring to the IB profile. It's having like that nice continuum coming right up from the beginning all the way through the high school. I think about their CAS projects and things that they're going to eventually do with our IB program, things that they can think about later. You're deconstructing research for them, showing them how to do it, writing, speaking for themselves. I mean, I really do love the idea of having students come, so maybe some of our TED Talk students and some of our Passion Project students could come and present to a board meeting. I think it would be, I know just from watching the TED Talks, I was so impressed, first of all, that they were able to get up there. I think that that's a skill in itself. You know, we're kind of used to it, all of us sitting up here, but when you put yourself out there and you have to public speak and you have to, you know, represent yourself, that's a huge skill for young students. So I would love to have you guys choose some students that we could have showcase and come to our meetings. So I had a couple of questions, and one of them was about the MAP accelerator. Do we only do it with math, or are we looking to expand that into our ELA and WEA scores, and a way that we could utilize that as well? Because we've been talking about goal setting over the years, kind of a little more unofficially, across the board, and looking at breaking down that data on ELA and saying the student needs a little help in reading comprehension, so let's focus on that, similarly to how you're doing it with math. So I'm just curious if we've talked about that.
I agree with you, and I do think that the goal-setting piece is important for all the academic areas. I think that MAP Accelerator is only for math. I don't know if there is a sister platform or something like that for ELA, but this is only math-driven.
Okay. And similar to just thinking about the way that the adaptive tests of an NWEA work, so we're talking about K-12 curriculum in here, but for grades 3 to 8. So I'm curious as to if a 7th or 8th grade student is kind of going through this adaptive test and is all of a sudden on 10th, 11th, 12th grade content, how does that factor into the way that they're being kind of rewarded? Because even if they're only answering 20 to 30% of those 11th grade questions correctly, but they're a 7th grader, I kind of am wondering how we weight that, because I feel that students should feel good about that kind of, if it's happening. If it's not happening, that's wonderful too, because they can still accelerate and do well within their age group. So I'm not suggesting it has to be that way. But I'm saying for those students that are going, if this goes up to 12th grade curriculum in early college, as it says in the slide, I'm just interested to how we weight that with our students.
I think that this is a time where they get to have exposure to that. So whether they succeed with it or don't know how to answer those questions, they are still getting exposed to something, and I think it just could spark ideas and spark new connections. So I don't know how, or really what you mean by how we're weighting it or where we're
I
weighting
think I'm
that.
thinking about the reward system.
reward
So
system.
in
I
other
understand what
words,
you're saying.
they're obviously
leveling up in their
mastering their
place.
grade
Okay,
level.
Yeah.
But they might now be in a different sphere and looking at content that's, maybe they haven't really
Right.
learned yet, so they're not mastering that. But is that taken into consideration with reward system, because
So
they might be on a different level, is what I'm asking.
And you know what, we see things like that actually happening a lot within the classroom, because there are students in third grade who are doing math that is far beyond third grade curriculum. And those students then have to sometimes go back, and there are links on the side that can bring them to earlier lessons to help them get successful at what they are trying to learn. So there are supports put in place by the program that they can then become successful. I don't think it's ever set up that they will not be getting points. They get something called energy points. They get to pick avatars when they get those energy points too. So there's always a reward built into it. And it's not totally that they just attempt everything and don't know what to do. Well, then we could even drop them down manually if we see that happening, because we don't want students to feel bad about
That's
themselves.
what I'm thinking. I just
Yeah.
don't want there to be that reward gap of the students that are,
Yeah.
you know, their test is taking them somewhere, and I think that effort should be rewarded, that they're
Yeah.
going there. So I just wanted to ask that question. I
agree.
appreciate it. No,
Yeah.
thank you. And really just, again, I love the way that you're implementing it here. I love the way you're talking about expanding it as well. We've talked so much about consistency and making sure that our students, no matter which building they're in, are getting the same opportunities. So that growth and potential here is really important for all the students. So thank you,
Agreed.
all three of you. These passion projects in particular will be the most memorable things that I believe these students do. When I think back to being a child and I think about those types of creative things that we were able to do, that's what I really remember. And I hate to say that in front of a bunch of teachers, but I don't remember some of the details. I really don't. But I do remember what you're doing is just going to be very impactful for them, and is giving them really, really great life skills, like Dr. Downing said. So really appreciate all the work across the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for the presentation. It was excellent. I really appreciate the implementation of the MAP Accelerator. I think it's great that we're giving students an option to have time for meaningful practice on topics that are within their zone of proximal development, really speaking to what they need in that moment to help them grow as math students. And I also appreciate the gamification of it, because I think that adds a level of motivation for some students who might not always come into a math setting with that kind of motivated spirit. So I really like the combination of both of those pieces to help our students practice, their math. The questions that I have about the MAP Accelerator, and Ms. Barry, I think you might have asked this question, but I'm not sure if I heard the answer. To what extent, I know it's aligned to the NWEA, but to what extent is that then aligned to the New York State standards for the grade level that we're, in this case, the third grade?
So when the students take the NWEA, they are given a RIT score, and that's where they fall in comparison to other students their age. That RIT score is then sent over to MAP Accelerator, and they're given things on their difficulty. So sometimes that's going to be below grade level. Sometimes that's going to be above grade level. It's in addition to what's happening in the classroom, and the math program that we use is fantastic, and it does address all of those next generation learning standards and the math practices. So this is just in addition for students to either accelerate a little bit, or even, I think, remediate and spend time on what they need to. What I addressed the first time, I think, when it was asked, was that there is the opportunity for classroom instruction. So like I said, third grade fractions, for example, can be reinforced through this as well. So if we're looking to align it with the standards, they have third grade material available. We're looking at it more in the lens of students learning what they need to at that time, but if they need to be reinforced with their grade level standards, and that option is there. It's more really looking at their RIT score where they are not really compared to what the curriculum is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that kind of answers, that answers my question. Just thinking about it and even listening to the one student who was talking about how she liked it because it could help her do better on the NWEA, which is great. But the only concern that it brings to me is that I don't want our students to connect this with a test. Like, we don't teach to a test, we teach to standards, right? We go to school to learn for life, not to learn for school. So I guess that's my only like question or wondering or thinking around it, is really just wanting to make sure that it's reinforcing. Again, I guess all math reinforces itself, right? It's all building blocks, especially if you have a deficiency. But just really that we're really focusing on the standards that the kids need to know and not using it to get better NWEA scores. I don't know if that makes sense.
I agree with you, and I feel that there are definitely different levels of enrichment, especially surrounding math, that are happening all the time within the classroom, and this is just a piece of that. And I think that sometimes maybe students, when taking the NWA, they might not have meaning in that. And I feel like if they're saying, oh, well, I could actually do better in this, maybe it will encourage them to perform better on that exam, to show what they know and how teachers can actually help them better. Because sometimes if some students don't feel like it is meaning, it is just a test and they have no results, they don't see anything from it, they might not be giving it their all, and then we don't know exactly what they're missing because of that. So I agree, I don't think it should be taught to a test, but I think maybe in some cases, if they're realizing this can reinforce that, it could be a win-win.
And how often are the students on the MAP Accelerator?
So right now, we're encouraging it that it's twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes each session, and not more than that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And with regards to the Passion Project, also, I think it's a great addition to curriculum. It's anytime that we can give students agency, that we can give students voice in their learning and allow them to do learning that's relevant and meaningful to them, I think that's really what the goal always is. So I really appreciate that this has been added in. I like the fact that it's infusing so many competencies. You know, we've got thinking skills in there, you've got research and design skills, communication skills. So it's a really nice conglomeration of skills that are going on this project. I don't have words right now, I'm sorry. The one thing that I do wonder, and just listening to your report, is, you know, in the beginning, Mr. Eckert, you were talking about how a bunch of the boys were thinking about, like, how do I get into the NFL? So I'm wondering, in the Passion Project, it seemed like it was an independent project, but maybe moving forward, is there a way for students to collaborate if they're similar passions, working on those effective skills as well, the collaboration skills? Just, I don't know, is another layer.
Oh, I think that's the beauty of the Passion Projects and the Genius Hour and the 20% time, is there's really no set limitations or whatnot. If you read any of the books on Genius Hour and Passion Projects, they'll tell you that student that was interested in cooking and looking up recipes, the best way for him to show his passions or her passions would be to come in and, you know, bring in a hot pan and actually be cooking for the students as they're presenting. So it really is endless. You know, we're really at the very lower level of Passion Projects. I know it's something that we did a lot of this year at Riverside and Stellar. I know the other Stellar teachers are doing some form of it in their buildings as well. So I think, you know, as we continue to learn from each other and collaborate, the sky's the limit in terms of these projects for sure.
Great, thank you. And the last question I have, I think, is more just for central administration. I know enrichment is a topic that's come up quite a bit over the last few years, and really thinking about how we're providing opportunities for enrichment specifically at the elementary level. And while these are great additions or starts to where we're going, I think I'm just really curious about how you define enrichment.
How do I define enrichment?
Yeah, like when you think about enrichment, what does that mean? What does that look like? What is, if you were envisioning the goal as to where are we going with this? I know, maybe I'll preface it.
Okay, so where are we going with this, as opposed to like a technical definition of what
Or
enrichment
just
is?
your definition. I
Okay,
don't need a
so-
textbook one, just
okay, so-
your definition.
I was searching my Rolodex of the actual definition of enrichment, and then we're in Zuli model and all that good stuff. But where I think we're going with this, so I'll start with the end first. So where I think we're going with this is, we've started a process of developing curriculum models that are integrated, because we feel like those units allow us for students to make connections between and among disciplines. So that's the first thing. That also allows us the creativity and the teachers the creativity within that framework to, like we're talking about, add extra things like WIN, add extra things like Genius projects or passion projects. I see us going to as we continue to build our new units, I see that enhancing as we continue to build those units. Our teachers are getting used to this model for the first time, right? Our teachers, this is the first time we've ever done a WIN model like this before. So we are I would say, in the early developmental stages of where we are with that. In terms of what I see enrichment as, I would define enrichment as activities or opportunities for students that allow them to go deeper into specific curricular areas. For me, it would be something that was based on their interest. So that's not the textbook definition for everybody, but for me, it would be something like if Dr. Downing was interested in a particular book or an author, that passion project might be an in-depth author study, right? And to those particular types of books. I could see that. I would like to see us move this up to the middle school. I would like to see us, we have elements of it through projects that we have, the TOK exhibition, the CAS projects. We have elements of it at the high school, but one of the things we've been thinking about already in context of the state coming back and saying, you know, there might be some differences you're allowed to do with assessments. I see us taking advantage of that and trying to use this kind of idea of how do we assess student learning authentically in that particular way. So I could see us kind of moving this up. We have glimpses of it all over the place, but one of the things I talked about when we first started, or when I first commented on the presentation, was that we're using the structures we have and the things that we already do well. So to hit on the fact that we're using the IB learner profile, that's something that's embedded already. We can use that. Habits of mind wasn't necessarily new, but it's aligned. So it's a different way and an age-appropriate way for the kids to think about the same types of skills and generations as skills and dispositions as we go forward. So I see us really at the experimental level, and that to me is fun. We're defining our success as we go, and I think that's really, to me, important. You know, another key piece was brought up about focusing on a number for NWEA. When Mr. Zappia talked about goal setting, we never talked about set it to 157, right? There was no goal about let's make sure that our geometry is 157. It's more about how do you grow as a learner? How are we reflective practitioners? How do we take the skills that we're using right now and enhance them? So I think your point is an excellent one. We don't want to teach the test. That's not what that authentic learning is all about. I think it's more authentic when we give kids opportunities to explore the topics that are interested to them while still maintaining a strong base in the standards that we need to teach.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the MAP Accelerator, I think, is a great tool for differentiating instruction. It's a great thing to have to offer to our students.
Yep.
I would love with the idea of enrichment to really think about, you know, moving forward. Obviously, we have a baseline definition of what it is. We have some examples of enrichment that are going on. But I'd love to adopt a system for it to ensure that it is occurring across our elementary schools, into the middle school, into the high school, using like best practice. You know, for a long time, I know it was touted that we used a school-wide enrichment model. To what extent we did, I'm unsure. But that is an example of a model. But really just thinking about the systems that we can put in place to make sure that all of our students they have the opportunity to be enriched in a very meaningful way, and in ways that aren't just purely academic, like really thinking about the arts, music, creativity. I think that would be a great benefit to our students.
I think you're really going to like next year's theme.
I hope so.
I think you're really going to like next year's
I
theme.
hope so.
I'm not unveiling it yet.
I do really thank you for spearheading this. I know starting things that are new are never easy. Getting buy-in is never easy. And, you know, all great things have a starting point. So thank you for starting us off.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
all of your support. I really appreciate it very much. And again, I can't thank my teachers enough. They're incredible, the work that they do with our students. So I thank them.
That comes
Great
from your
job, guys.
leadership, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Turning to policies. At stage 2, we have 3310, public access to records. Any comments or questions? Okay to move this? Also at stage 2, we have 7121, screening of new school entrants. Okay to move this? Yes, thank you. At stage 3 tonight, we have 6130, evaluation of personnel. Okay to move this for approval? And also at stage 3, we have 7530, child abuse and maltreatment. Okay to move this to approval? Thank you. Mr. Gavin, Superintendent's report.
Sure. Thank you. We are pleased to announce that our dedication to music education has earned Rockville Center School District won the award for the best communities of music education. Yet again, the collective efforts of teachers, administrators, parents, students, and community leaders have been instrumental in making music part of a well-rounded education for every child. I applaud Dr. Zuar, our faculty, and parents for their unwavering commitment to creating an environment where students can learn and grow with music. Summer program registration. This was a hot topic earlier today. At 10 a.m., we opened up registration for our K-8 enrichment program this summer. I'm happy to share that we have over 350 students registered already, and that number has already surpassed our total registration of 315 from the previous summer. Over 300 students were registered successfully in the first hour alone. As a result of our expanded course offerings, no classes were filled to capacity until closer to 10:30. So usually one of the complaints that we've had is that within 3 minutes, the classes are gone. So because we've expanded it a little bit, we got a full 27 minutes longer than we have in the past.
Progress.
There are still over 30 classes unfilled in K-8. Please contact Mr. Eckert or the program secretary, Amy Abbey, if you have any questions. On April 1st, we had an informational meeting for our parents that was held in Southside Middle School. It was standing room only for our Wellness Committee update. So, Southside Middle School psychologist Dr. Jackie Mankari and Rockville Center speech and language pathologist Miss Amy Hurley presented sessions on how to support students with mindfulness, emotional support, and executive functioning strategies. The presentations were engaging and highly formative for our families. Just a quick plug and a reminder for Ms. Love. The Wellness Walk will be held on Saturday, April 13th from 10 to 12 p.m. on the Southside Middle School track. There will be activities for all ages that support the overall wellness of our students and families. Please come join us for the fun. Another shameless plug, the Rockville Center Education Foundation's annual gala is this Saturday at Gatsby's in Jones Beach. We will be honoring 2 outstanding administrators who are retiring, Darren Raymar and Brian Zuar. The event begins at 6 p.m. and tickets are still on sale at the Ed Foundation website. Administrative vacancies. We are deep in the hiring process for the principals of Hewitt and Covert, the Director of Fine and Performing Arts, and the Director of Athletics, PE, and Health. We have engaged committees of teachers, administrators, and parents as part of the process for all positions and look forward to appointing as many successful candidates as we can at the next board meeting. Another shameless plug, because it's springtime and we have lots of stuff going on. Matilda will open up next Friday, April 12th at Southside High School. I can tell you I've already seen the rehearsals, not the full rehearsal yet, but I've seen rehearsals, and they are in the midst of creating an extravaganza in terms of a set. Please buy your tickets at, now make sure you get this right, sshs.seatyourself.biz. That is the website. .biz is the end. So if you're looking forward to buying tickets, you can also see that the URL is also listed as you drive into Southside High School. It's up there on the big bulletin board right there when you come in. Our climate survey, our annual climate survey, is currently available, and emails have been sent to parents, students, and faculty members. Please note that the survey will close on April 19th. It is essential for all of our community members to participate, as the feedback collected will be instrumental in guiding our Board of Education and administrative team as we think about the future. Incorporating community input is a key part of our strategic communication efforts, which allows us to set objectives and develop strategies to enhance the student experience. We also had, in terms of our communication, we had our 8th graders come to the high school today, where they were given tours of the building, had small group discussions with high school students and members of the support staff. It was a great morning, complete with prize giveaways made by the students in wood design. It was a great opportunity for the class of 2028 to see what Southside High School has to offer when we welcome them in September. Another wonderful experience at the high school occurred on Wednesday. We had Intergenerational Sharing Day. Our seniors from the Sandell Center visit and are treated to dancing, trivia, musical performances, plus an outstanding lunch and conversation with our students. Our guidance staff and high school administration did a wonderful job of organizing this event. Thanks again to Mayor Murray and Deputy Mayor Baxley for joining us as well. This was the second time in the last few weeks that we've had the visit from, this is the second time in the last few weeks we've had visits from our seniors. Thanks to Mr. Beinlich in the wood shop, our seniors had the opportunity to come and try out our new laser engraver and make several projects with the guidance, of course, of our well-trained students. You should definitely check out our photos of this event on Instagram. And then finally, we did have some questions from parents about voting in our schools during school hours. This has been an historical practice in Nassau County. Nassau County superintendents have advocated for ending this practice due to security concerns. As we continue this advocacy work, please know that our Director of Security, Mr. Minton, has worked to put additional security procedures in place to ensure the safety of our students if and when we have to have those types of days. We've added additional security guard shifts and made other pragmatic decisions internally to ensure the safety of our students. That is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. Opportunity for board members. Mrs. Messier.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the Rockville Center Village leadership, our recreation leadership, and the leadership from the JCC for coming together to collaborate with us to bring UPK to Rockville Center. This has been a big ask from the community for the past few years, and I'm really pleased that we were able to collaborate and bring that opportunity to our students a little bit closer to home. And I hope that we can continue to explore more options within the community moving forward. I'd also like to thank you and the middle school and high school administration for trying something new with our 8 to 9 transition. I'm sure that's going to go a long way for those students and making them feel comfortable in that new building. Say good luck to all of our theater, music, and art participants over the next month. I'm really excited to come and see Matilda. It's one of my kids' favorites, so they're looking forward to it as well. And good luck to all of our athletes, our middle school athletes whose seasons have just begun, and our high school athletes who are right in the middle of the regular season. And congrats, lacrosse. Great win tonight. That's it. You want me to say more? Way to beat Garden City. I am going to wear my Rockville Center sweatshirt to school tomorrow and sit back on my chair. But thank you to everyone else, for everything. There's like a million thank yous. But thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hackett.
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to thank Mayor Murray and Deputy Mayor Baxley and the village trustees, Karen Polito, who's fantastic. And we really appreciate their willingness to work with us. And really thank you. I mean, Mr. Gavin thanked everybody, but we have to thank you. Your leadership always is driving us in places that make us expand and offer more to our community, so thank you. And thank you, everybody up here. I know you all played a role in helping us to get that done. So we're excited. It is always nice to have things homegrown. And really, the JCC program is a wonderful program at Oceanside, so I love having both choices. To Mr. Gavin's point, we have parents that need certain things or have different preferences. So options and choices are just among our theme of what we're trying to do. So thank you. Also, just hope everybody had a happy Easter. We are going to see you, I think, one more time, but happy Passover. I don't know if we'll be speaking next time. So happy holidays to everybody. And also, yes, Ed Foundation, we hope to see you there. We raise so much great money there. They are so ingenious. They're now doing online bidding for their auctions and their raffles. You can do things ahead of time. And I just think it's such a great way to support the students because all of that money does come back to our kids. So hope to see you guys there on Saturday. And yes, good luck to our Matilda cast. They always do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gruner?
There's just so many great things happening right now. So that I did want to say that the ACE offerings for the summer are fantastic. I don't know, it did seem like there's a lot more choices and more options, so that's great. I did get a chance to go to the Intergenerational Sharing Conference. That was my first time going. It was really nice. Like, it was just such a wonderful day. Everyone was so happy. And it was just I thought it was great that our high school kids were able to connect in the way that they were. So thank you to everyone who put that together. The Parent Wellness Night was also fantastic. The 2 speakers were great. One was on executive functioning. I feel like that should be like a primer for every parent, like as they're sending their kids to elementary school, because it was a wealth of information. So thank you for putting that together, and congrats to everybody, the all district musicians, the theater department with their upcoming show, the athletes that are working hard. Just so many good things going on. So thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Downing?
I will echo the thanks to you, Mr. Gavin, Mrs. Barry, Mayor Murray, Deputy Mayor Baxley, everyone who was involved in expanding our universal pre-K offerings at the Rec Center. It's an exciting new opportunity for our families to have that closer to home. Thanks also to Mr. Zappia, Mr. Eckert, Ms. Alexi. I love to see the opportunities that our students are enjoying, where they can receive this kind of instruction that's personalized, it's relevant, it's fun and engaging. That's such an important part of their elementary education. Again, the Ed Foundation, another community partnership, right? Just like with the Village, this gala honoring Dr. Zuar and Mr. Raymar. I'm going to read the website. You can still get tickets at www.rvcedfoundation.org. And we have to thank the board of the Ed Foundation for the incredible amount of work that they put in to host this gala and to honor 2 very special people in our school community. And all of the funding comes right back into our schools through grant awards. Break a leg to the high school cast and crew of Matilda, very naughty children. I can't wait to see that. Thank you also to Ms. Padone, the guidance and the social workers. The Intergenerational Sharing Conference, I think, is one of the best events of the year. Such an important event where we see high school students helping the seniors take pictures of the musical groups that are performing and participating in dance and trivia. Really such a great relationship builder between all kinds of generations in our town. Thank you, Ms. Love, for the Parent Wellness Education Night and for the continuing meetings of the Code of Conduct Advisory Groups. I really do appreciate the chance to involve and support our parents and families on these important issues. And on that note, fill out the climate survey. I encourage everyone to do that by April 19th. And my fellow board members and I have started to and will continue to join some PTA meetings over the next few weeks to discuss our proposed school budget. And thank you, as always, to our dedicated PTA volunteers who work so hard to build these communication and connections between families and schools. Our missions are similar, and we all know that kids do better when parents and families are engaged. So that's what we share, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you again to the Village, and good luck to all of our students. We are proud of each and every one of you as you take the stage or the fields or the track. Keep up the good work. Thank you to Mr. Beinlake. I didn't realize that he hosted our seniors, so I really love to hear that, that they were able to have that experience. And we know what great work he and his students do, and we're always appreciative of that. We'll see you Saturday night at the gala, so thank you very much. Opportunity for visitors. The public is reminded to address questions or remarks to the board through its president. Is requested to refrain from making any direct references to students or staff members that could be considered critical of their performance or their character. Such references to individual students or staff members are inappropriate in a public forum and should instead be conducted in private conversation with appropriate members of the staff. The public is asked to state their name and address and to please limit their comments to 3 minutes.
Turn this off. Good evening, everyone. Jeff Greenfield, citizen taxpayer, Yuba Court. Thanks for not putting out a silver alert on me while I work remotely from Boca. I wanted to congratulate Mr. Gavin and wish him mazel tov on his contract extension. I wasn't here earlier when it happened, but heard about it and watched it. And I'm glad, and thank you to the school board for recognizing him, and kudos to getting it right. And I think we have an outstanding candidate in this superintendent, more than a candidate. We have it in we have an individual that connected with the school community and the village community. So I want to know if he's earned the Dr. J. Rowling contract. Is that in your discussions?
His contract was extended through 3 years.
Okay, thank you. Also, you did something, Mr. Gavin, that your predecessor didn't do. You showed up at work all the time, and I recognize you for that. I've seen you on the street and outside the schools and everything like that. So good job all the way around in the community. The budget meeting, which is the date of the meeting where I can speak? I always get confused with that. What is the
The
date?
budget hearing is the 16th of April.
Okay, 16. Okay, Albany, do you have any update on, they supposedly did the budget today with respect to foundation aid?
They were supposed to, I haven't heard yet today whether or not it was actually passed, but I know that
Well, there's an impasse on
they had-
two items.
They had passed an extension that was supposed to
Right.
expire. So I didn't hear today, I was in and out of meetings and stuff all day, but I know that there are a couple items that are still sticking points.
Housing.
Yeah, housing is one.
But is the foundation aid going to be restored or some formula?
I've heard that it's in the works, that an additional $1 billion from the governor's, what I was told was there's an additional $1 billion that the legislature would like to have restored from the governor's original proposal. Whether or not that comes as a full $1 billion and how it's distributed, that hasn't been decided yet. Am I fair on that, Robert?
And on the voting in the schools, I join with your concern with respect to that, and we've done so much by way of security. And this day and age, when we can do early voting in the rec center or the library or centralized location, the old-fashioned that it has to be in the neighborhood so people could walk. People don't walk. They'll probably ask for valet parking at some time because your parking isn't good. I think that's the way to push and have a legislative change so that the rec center could be designated for that purpose and can accommodate not only the parking, not interfering with the school. And there are a lot of locations in the community that can be served outside of the school. And the security issue, and you really have to make a big push of this, and if necessary, legislation to that effect. I showed up at 7:30 to vote, and I was the first voter in Hewitt School, so it wasn't exactly overwhelming, but the building was open, and with no security in sight, but in any event, the fact is it shouldn't be that way. And the other part is that you take away a room that could be used for instructional purposes for the kids, for 4 people to sit around and have a coffee clutch all day because people aren't interested in voting, or there's less people going to vote on election day, because election day is now a whole month with early voting. So it's time for a change. I'm happy to help. I always like to be a messenger of change. If you need my support in that area, I think it's, and the timing is right because of the concern over security issues in school buildings. And I really think you should push for legislation. The Nassau County School Board Association should push. And just because we always did it the other way is archaic. And one thing I heard about is that the rec center couldn't be used for some districts because it's not within the village, or those districts that aren't in the village. That's all a lot of nonsense. People travel easily there for early voting. The early voting are selected locations.
Yeah.
That concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much. And we share your concern, and we will do everything we can to
Thank you.
advocate for that. Thank you.
And I will join you Saturday night as a founding member of the Education
Yes.
Foundation.
We look forward to seeing you
All right.
there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No silver alert needed, I like it.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to approve financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor? Can I have a motion to approve the financial reports as listed on the agenda, or receipt of financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve items for action 2 through 10?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. The next meeting will be Tuesday, April 16th, and that is a public work session and our budget hearing. Have a good evening.